He was a man who could tear a lion apart with his bare hands and crush an entire army with nothing but a jawbone. Yet he was brought to his knees by a single secret. He was a miracle child with the strength of a god and the weaknesses of a man, destined to save a nation but unable to save himself. From the supernatural vow that gave him his power to the ultimate betrayal that stole his sight, this is the tragic, epic, and true story of Samson, the strongest man to ever live and the high price he paid for his pride. Imagine a world cloaked in shadows, where hope feels like a distant and fading memory. For 40 long years, the people of Israel lived under the heavy, iron thumb of the Philistines. This wasn't just a military occupation, it was a crushing of the spirit. The Philistines were masters of iron and warfare, while the Israelites had been stripped of their weapons and their dignity. In this era of oppression, the cry for a deliverer was constant, but the heavens seemed silent. The people had forgotten their God, and in return, it seemed their God had left them to the mercy of their enemies. In the small, dusty village of Zorah, nestled in the foothills of the Judean mountains, lived a man named Manoah. He and his wife represented the quiet ache of a whole nation. They were faithful people, yet they carried a personal sorrow that mirrored the barrenness of the land. They were childless. In that culture, childlessness was more than a private grief. It was a public mark of perceived abandonment. Every morning, Manoah's wife likely looked at the empty spaces in her home, watching other mothers in the village, and wondered if her lineage would simply end in the dust of Zorah. But God never forgets a cry for help. One afternoon, while she was alone in the fields, a figure appeared, the angel of the Lord. His appearance was so striking, so terrifyingly pure, that she described him later as having a countenance like the very light of heaven. He didn't come with a suggestion, he came with a divine decree. "You will conceive and give birth to a son," he told her. But this child was not to be a normal boy. He was to be a Nazirite, a person set apart, consecrated to the divine from the very womb. The requirements were strict and symbolic. He was to drink no wine or fermented drink, eat nothing unclean, and most importantly, no razor was ever to touch his head. His hair would be the outward sign of an inward covenant, a physical anchor to a spiritual power. The angel's parting words were a spark in the darkness. He will begin to deliver Israel from the hands of the Philistines. When Samson was born, the village of Zorah must have felt a shift in the wind. He was not just a son, he was a living promise of freedom. From his first breath, the weight of a nation's hope rested on his tiny, growing shoulders. As Samson grew, it became clear that the Spirit of the Lord moved upon him in extraordinary ways. He didn't just grow in height, he grew in a terrifying, magnetic power. He was a man of intense passions, a figure who seemed larger than life itself. Yet despite his holy calling, he was a man of the earth. He was drawn to the very people he was meant to defeat. His journey into legend truly began on the road to Timnah, a Philistine stronghold. While walking through the lush, sun-drenched vineyards, a young lion, roaring with the primal hunger of a predator, leapt from the brush to devour him. Any other man would have been torn to shreds in seconds, his story ending before it began. But the Bible tells us that the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon Samson. With nothing but his bare hands, he seized the beast. There was no struggle, only the sound of bones snapping as he tore the lion apart as easily as one might snap a young goat's neck. He told no one, not even his parents. He didn't seek the glory of the kill. He simply wiped the blood from his hands and continued his journey. Months later, passing the same spot, he saw the sun-bleached carcass of the lion. In a strange twist of nature, a swarm of bees had made their home inside the ribcage, producing golden honey. Samson reached into the skeletal remains, took the sweetness from the strength, and ate. This moment served as a profound metaphor for his entire life. Out of the most violent and unclean circumstances, God would extract something sweet for his people. However, this event also birthed the riddle that would ignite a war. Samson, driven by his eyes rather than his calling, demanded to marry a Philistine woman. Despite his parents' desperate pleas to find a bride among his own people, Samson insisted, saying, "Get her for me, for she pleases me well." He was a man of God, but he was also a slave to his own desires. This duality, the tug-of-war between divine duty and human impulse, would become his undoing. The wedding feast at Timnah lasted 7 days, a week of drinking and celebration. It was here that Samson's pride and the Philistines' treachery collided. He posed a riddle to 30 Philistine guests. Out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. He bet them 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes that they couldn't solve it. He thought himself clever, but he underestimated the ruthlessness of his enemies. Stumped and fearful of losing the wager, the Philistines didn't play fair. They pressured Samson's new bride, threatening to burn her and her entire family alive if she didn't extract the answer. For days, she wept and pleaded, accusing Samson of not truly loving her. Under the relentless pressure of her tears, Samson finally broke and told her the secret. When the Philistines solved the riddle on the final day, Samson's fury was incandescent. "If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have found out my riddle." This was the beginning of a bloody cycle of vengeance. Samson went down to Ashkelon, slew 30 men to pay the debt, and left in a rage. When he later returned to find his wife had been given to another man by her father, he took a devastating revenge that the Philistines would never forget. He caught 300 foxes, tied them tail to tail with burning torches between them, and set them loose in the Philistine grain fields. He destroyed their entire economy. Their wheat, their vineyards, and their olive groves were reduced to ash.
The Philistines responded with equal brutality, killing his former wife and her father. Samson, now a man with nothing left to lose and a heart full of fire, struck them hip and thigh with a great slaughter. He retreated to a lonely cave in the rock of Atum, a giant waiting for the next storm. When 3,000 of his own people, the men of Judah, came to hand him over to the Philistines to keep the peace, Samson allowed them to bind him with new ropes. He was willing to be a prisoner, but it meant getting close enough to the enemy to strike. As the Philistines came shouting toward him at Lehi, thinking they had finally captured their tormentor, the Spirit of the Lord fell on him again. The thick, heavy ropes on his arms became like charred flax in a fire and simply dropped from his wrists. Picking up the only weapon available, a fresh, heavy jawbone of a donkey, he stood his ground. In a feat of endurance and power that defies human logic, Samson fought until 1,000 Philistines lay dead in the dust. He was a one-man army, the ultimate protector of a people too afraid to fight for themselves. After the battle, parched and near death from thirst, he cried out to God, and a spring of water miraculously burst from the ground to revive him. For 20 years, Samson judged Israel. His name was a shadow that loomed over every Philistine city. Yet the man who could conquer an army could not conquer the city of his own heart. He wandered into the valley of Sorek and fell in love with a woman named Delilah. She was beautiful, she was cunning, and she was the perfect weapon. The rulers of the Philistines offered Delilah a massive fortune, thousands of pieces of silver, to discover the secret of his strength. This wasn't just a quest for information, it was a psychological siege. 3 times Delilah asked, and 3 times Samson lied to her, playing a dangerous game. He told her to bind him with fresh bowstrings, then new ropes, then to weave his hair into a loom. Each time he woke up, snapped the restraints, and laughed, confident in his invincibility. But Delilah's weapon wasn't physical, it was emotional exhaustion. Day after day, she nagged him, questioning his love and wounding his spirit. Finally, the man who had kept the secret of his Nazirite vow his entire life laid his heart bare. He told her everything. "If my head is shaved, my strength will leave me." He had finally traded his divine purpose for a moment of human comfort. While he slept on her knees, the scissors moved through the air. The 7 braids of his hair, the crown of his consecration, fell to the floor. When he woke, he thought he could shake himself free as before, but he didn't realize the most tragic sentence in his biography. The Lord had departed from him. Without his vow, he was just a man. The Philistines pounced. They gouged out his eyes, took him to Gaza, and bound him in bronze shackles. The man who once carried the massive gates of Gaza on his shoulders was now a blind animal, forced to turn a heavy millstone in a dark, damp prison. He was mocked, humiliated, and broken, a laughingstock for the very people he was born to defeat. In the darkness of the prison, however, something began to happen. The Philistines, in their arrogance, forgot one detail: hair grows back. More importantly, in his humiliation, Samson's heart finally turned back to the source of his strength. He was no longer the proud, impulsive hero. He was a broken servant who finally understood that his strength was never his own. The Philistines gathered for a massive festival in the temple of their god, Dagon. They wanted to celebrate their victory over the champion of Israel. Thousands of people crowded onto the roof, while the lords and nobles sat below, drinking and mocking the blind giant. They called for Samson to be brought out to entertain them. Samson, led by a young boy, asked to be placed between the 2 central pillars that supported the entire temple. He stood there, the weight of his failures and the weight of his calling resting on his scarred shoulders. He didn't pray for a long life. He didn't pray for his sight to return. He prayed for one thing: "O Lord God, remember me, I pray. Strengthen me just this once." Leaning his full weight against the pillars, he pushed with every ounce of faith he had left. With a sound like a mountain cracking, the temple of Dagon crumbled. In his death, Samson killed more of Israel's enemies than he had in his entire life. He died under the rubble, but he died a deliverer, fulfilling the prophecy spoken to his mother so many years before. Samson's story is a mirror for all of us. It is a story of unlimited potential and the danger of human frailty. It reminds us that our greatest strengths can become our greatest weaknesses if they are not guarded by character and humility. Samson had the Spirit of God, but he lacked the self-control to manage the gift he was given. Yet, despite his flaws, God never truly let him go. Samson's life teaches us that our gifts are a trust, not a right. That compromise is a slow leak that eventually sinks the ship, and that God can use your rock bottom for his greatest glory. He was the strongest man to ever live, but he reminds us that the hardest battle we will ever fight is the one against our own desires. Even in a prison house, blinded and chained, Samson found the path back to his purpose. It shows us that no matter how far we've fallen or how many mistakes we've made, God is still a God of second chances. Your story doesn't have to end in the prison. It can end in victory. If this story reminded you that even in your weakest moments, you can still accomplish something great, then take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a story that can strengthen your faith and challenge your spirit. Share this with someone who needs encouragement today, and let Samson's journey remind everyone that with God, even the broken can find strength. Thank you for watching, and may you find the strength for the battles you face today.